Good evening. I call to order the September meeting of the Florence City Planning Commission. And on behalf of the planning staff and the commissioners here tonight, I want to thank all of y'all for being here. I always say this is the people's business, and y'all are what make this important. This is why we're here. And, you know, we want to kind of make Florence a better place. And we can't do that without participation from the constituents. So with that said, I am going to ask Mr. Hill to open us up with prayer.
All right. Man, you sure, Mr. Moses?
Okay, I tell you what, Mr. Moses is in here, I will do it. All right. Heavenly Father, on this beautiful late summer day, Lord, we just give you praise for all your many blessings and what you've done for this community and this town. Lord, we ask that you just instill in us wisdom upon these commissioners and our planning staff and our city leaders and the people of this city. Lord, help us to live together, love together, and just make this a better place. We ask this in the sweet name of your son, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, the first item on the agenda is to approve last month's minutes. The commissioners have received their packet. They've had a chance to go through the minutes. And so if there are not any changes, corrections, I'll call for a motion. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve as submitted. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Like signs nay, and the minutes are approved. We have 3 items on the agenda tonight that calls for a public hearing. And always like to try to kind of go over what we prefer up here when we do have public hearings. They're courtesies, and you know, sometimes we deal with subjects that can, you know, be bothersome to other people. So we show courtesy. You know, we're in the South, and things are a little different. I'm sorry, Elaine, I know you. When we open the public hearing portion of this, I'll open it up for those that are for or against that particular request. And I'll call upon you. You raise your hand, I'll call upon you and ask you to come to this podium over here, give us your name, and then I'll allow 3 minutes. And then after that's over, the people that are opposed, I'll invite the ones that are for, either way. But when you're addressing the commission, when you're at the podium, only address the commissioners, no one in the audience. And we'll certainly show you those same courtesies. But with that said, good evening, sir. Let's hear from the planning staff.
All right. Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody.
This, by the way, while he's looking, is PC 2021-28. This is a request to rezone from UR urban residential to DS destination/select use. Your report, sir.
All right. Thank you very much. Yes, this is 257 North Coit Street. Here's a vicinity map showing it's at the corner of West Arlington Street and North Coit Street. The zoning map shows it currently as urban residential, and they are requesting to be rezoned to destination select use, which you can see on the south side of the property. The adjacent property is already zoned destination select use. The future land use map does have it as residential urban, in keeping with the current zoning. So the current zoning, urban residential, this is the table from the Unified Development Ordinance for commercial uses. As you can see straight down the line, there are no commercial uses that are allowed in urban residential. So the owner would like to rezone to destination select use to operate commercial retail in this location, which has historically been Jack's Seafood Market, Missy's Cafe, and in the previous zoning ordinance was B3, commercial general. So here's some pictures. You can still see the Jack's Fish Market sign on the front of the building. There was a restaurant, and it is at the corner of West Arlington Street and North Coit Street. just some pictures around the building. And then adjacent land uses of the property, you have a mixture of commercial, institutional, single family, and also multifamily residential, including Coit Village apartments. And that does conclude staff's report.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Can you tell us what all is allowed in DS destination?
Sure, yeah, I can go back to that table real fast. Sorry, I didn't skip over that so quickly. There we go. It's kind of small, but down the line, like I said, he's going to want to do commercial retail, which is permitted, and you do have some conditional uses, like see, restaurant, no drive-in or drive-through is permitted. General professional medical office would be permitted with this rezoning. Again, everything under the commercial under the umbrella of commercial retail. Brew pubs are conditionally permitted, and also, so that's a pretty good. That's everything commercially that can be done.
So typically, what was the former G3?
B3.
B3, I mean, yeah.
Right, which would have been commercial general, which
Okay.
is a more intense zoning designation than what they're asking
Okay.
for. So this is kind of a step down. It's
Okay.
destination select use.
Yeah, when we carried over the zoning designations from when we adopted the land use maps with the Unified Development Code, you know, it was kind of a mass city adoption of the new land use designations. And, you know, this was a site that was developed commercially, historically zone B3, and historically used as a commercial use, most recently being the Missy's Cafe and the Jack's Fish Market. And for whatever reason, when it went through that change, a residential zoning was applied to it, even though it's developed and its historic use and historic zoning was commercial in this case. So that's kind of, you know, what happened there. And we're just trying to go back and correct that for how it's built out and how it's historically been used.
So there was a open, viable business when it got zoned residential?
It was, yes. It was, I don't believe it was intentional.
Yeah, I don't think so.
To do that. I believe that was, you know,
Nobody,
there was a lot of, you know, a lot of combing through those maps and double checking those maps, but we're at a point now where people are coming forward to us to redevelop properties or to put new uses in these properties, you know, as we cycle through and people look at these things, and some of these you know, errors or oversights in the zoning code are coming to light now. It's about time where we're really seeing some of those, and we're trying to go back and correct some of those.
It's kind of unusual to have a hard traffic light corner, 4 lanes in both directions, and all 4 were commercial until they put the apartments there. So its intent was obviously to be commercial, and that was one of those areas when I think you did an overall coverage and you have to go back and tweak spots.
That's right, because we did zone the apartments to the urban residential use, which makes perfect sense. And we made sure that the houses there that were existing along Darlington Street were of that urban residential zoning. But the one commercial business on the corner there got picked up with the rest of the urban residential.
Okay. Any of the commissioners have any questions for staff? Hearing none, I will open the public hearing portion of this. It doesn't mean that you have to get up and speak on behalf or against, but I will open it up for anyone that is against this request to rezone. If you'd like to get up, I'll allow 3 minutes and you come up to the podium. Seeing no hands up, I'll call on anyone that would like to speak for this request if you feel like the need to get up. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing portion of this and call for a motion.
Move for adoption.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second to approve as submitted. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Like sign is nay, and it passes. Congratulations. I don't know if the party is here, but I wish you luck with that. Okay, the next item is PC 2021-29. This is a request to enter into a development agreement in zone RG3 residential pending annexation. And Mr. Johnson, you're still here.
Hey, that's right.
Staff report, please.
Thank you, sir. All right. This is the parcel of land. It's 106 acres. This is the corner of Redbud Lane and East House Springs Road. Just southwest of it is South Florence High School. So as you can see, it's a vacant lot, mostly wooded. Here's the current zoning. It is in the county. It is currently zoned Rural Community District, or RU1. And it does have contiguity, nailed the word. It does have contiguity through the campus zoning to the southwest. All right, and future land use kind of in keeping with a big wooded vacant lot is parks and open space. All right, so here is a conceptual plan for the Bluffs at Mill Creek. They would like to, over 10 years in 3 phases, develop 236 single-family residential lots. And at this time, they're requesting Rg3 zoning, but they will not annex until development begins. So right now, we are looking, the city and the developer are entering into a development agreement that will provide water and sewer, and that at the time of development, they will be locked into the Unified Development Ordinance. So city staff has worked with them on that. The Rg3 zoning is intended to provide for a variety of residential housing and neighborhood types with an auto urban or new urban character. And like I said, it will fall under the regulations of the UDO. The development will utilize city water and sewer. And the development agreement details the utility construction responsibility between the city and the developer. And I believe we had the development agreement as an attachment to the staff report. I just want to make sure everybody.
I did not have that.
Okay, I've got a few copies of them.
Now, are we going to be expected to rule on that agreement?
That is part of the case. Yes, sir.
Well, I think our hard copy did not come. Okay. I'm going to speak out for the commissioners, but it's very uncomfortable making a decision on an agreement that we're just now looking at, and that's my fault as well as. I assume that Mr. Peterson has been through this, and city planner, city manager and staff. Not very often are we called upon to approve an agreement.
That's right. It was drafted, actually Clint Moore, assistant city manager, and Mr. Jim Peterson worked on this agreement and worked with the developer on getting it approved. And it essentially lays out the zoning for the property. It lays out the water and sewer, the utility agreements between the city and the developer. And it outlines also the annexation process, because it protects both the developer and the city in case there are any conflicts with utilities or things aren't feasible. Then the property doesn't have to annex, versus if everything does work out and they proceed with the development, then they're required to annex. So it protects both sides in this case. And that's essential purpose of the agreement, such that one, to apply the zoning, work out the water, the water and sewer agreements, and also provide for annexation upon development.
I would like to make this recommendation, and the commissioners, please sound off if you disagree, but I think we can, as a body, make a decision on the annexation and the zoning request. I don't think as a body that we can do a full tilt and take that whole assignment tonight. Now, we can, if you would like to split that out, and if the commissioners are in agreement, we can make that decision on the annexation and the zoning, or we can postpone this to next month. Now, I know as developers, you like to get started and have, some understanding that things will go forward. Commissioners, please feel free if you. Sure.
Yeah, that's what, and I just asked staff, is there a model for this development agreement? Has this been used, this framework been used in another development that we've worked on?
Yes, this is a model agreement that we received from the Municipal Association. We've used this, the Grove as well as Alligator West. The Planning Commission does not actually have to make a decision on the agreement itself. It is more recommendation on the zoning. The responsibility regarding the development agreement with Planning Commission is to hold the public hearing and allow for public comment. City Council will then take action upon the agreement. So Planning Commission does not actually review and make any recommendations on the agreement.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
Won't
you.
call us ever within the-
Now, as far as the public, they see their agreement. If they're here for the public hearing portion of that to discuss the agreement.
That's right. The property has been posted and notice has been given.
Okay.
So I do not believe that staff has had any requests from the public to receive the document. That's true. Yes. So, and those are available, and they'll be available all through the process with City Council as well.
Thank you. Any other questions? I think we need to make a decision to go forward with the public hearing, but feel comfortable that we're not going to be responsible for the agreement, and our role is purely to justify the others. Does that require a vote, or can we just do it internally? I think, is everybody in agreement with doing that?
I am. I don't want to rule on this at all.
You ready to go?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, Still?
I don't think that's in our.
Yeah, that's
It's
right.
not our
It's not in our wheelhouse, as they say. Well, cool. Any other questions for staff? Hearing none, I'll open the public hearing portion of this. Anybody that would like to speak in favor of this, please come forward and give us your name, and we'll give you 3 minutes. Please, sir.
My name's Ryan Harvey. I'm the civil engineer.
Good evening and welcome.
Thank you, sir. So we just wanted to get the zoning worked out as far as we know what we can design for this piece of property. We are expecting the number of houses to be right around the conceptual plan. We do have to work things out like the city staff was saying with water and sewer. And we got the land being surveyed now. So we're going to try to save some of the larger trees. We're going to have to do traffic studies for DOT because both the roads are DOT roads. So.
I realize this is very preliminary and this is how things get started. So you'll be in front of this commission a couple more times.
Yes, sir.
Do any of the commissioners have questions of the gentleman?
How far is the city sewer from this site?
We have surveyed 2 different locations for sewer. The sewer on Red Bud, gravity sewer is not going to work, and the sewer on South Irby is not going to work. There is another sewer that is right by the swamp. So it's, I can't remember the name of the apartments. The Reserve, Mill Creek, the Reserve at Mill Creek or something like that. There is a chance for that sewer, the gravity sewer, to work there. The city staff met, my surveyors out there today, and we're going to shoot it tomorrow. So we'll know the inverts, and we're up the hill a good ways from where that sewer's at. So pretty sure it will work.
Good. I wish you luck. Any further questions?
How far is the crow flies? How many feet? How far away?
The sewer?
Yeah.
I didn't go out there and physically see it, but I would say probably 800 feet maybe.
All right. Mr. Harvey, thank you for coming forward. And I'll leave it open for someone that'd like to speak on behalf of this request. Seeing none, is there anyone that'd like to speak against this request? Again, seeing none, I will close the public hearing portion of this. Call for a motion.
Move we approve.
I have a motion and a second to approve as submitted, as it was outlined to us by the Assistant City Manager. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Like signs nay, and it passes. Thank you, Mr. Harvey. Roll call. Okay. Moving right along. PC 2021-30. This is a request to rezone from NC 6.1 to NC 6.3. These are 4 parcels located on Cherokee Road. Ms. Lane, good evening.
Good evening.
Staff report, please.
This seems to be a similar situation the night before catching up. The request is to rezone 4 parcels that were traditionally zoned for multifamily and have been built upon, some of them with that zoning in mind traditionally. And then when the new maps were put in place, it was caught up again in the single family dragnet, and the owners simply want to go back to the original zoning to provide themselves with some protection, because if something happened to these buildings, they would not be able to rebuild. It is located along Cherokee Road between Congaree Drive and Linwood Drive. And you can see those 4 parcels outlined here. They are all zoned NC 6.1, which allows only single family detached housing at the moment. And the future land use map calls for it to be neighborhood conservation as well. And the desired zoning is neighborhood conservation, but it is 6.3, which does permit duplexes, townhouses, and multiplexes. And this is the traditional zoning. Those lots were zoned R5 prior to the 2018 adoption of the Unified Development Ordinance. And
Excuse
the,
me, Ms. Lane, all 4 were R5?
yes, sir.
Okay.
And then the remainder around it was R4, which was multifamily limited. And I'll show you in a moment what that meant. So prior, under the 2008 zoning ordinance, the R4 was accommodated single family and 2 families, so duplexes and single family. And those 4 lots were zoned R5, which did provide for multifamily, the townhouses, and duplexes kinds of development. And 2 of the lots were developed in that way. The NC 6.3, as you can see from this chart, does allow the single family detached townhomes, duplexes, and multiplexes, and then multifamily with conditions. And we have looked at the lots, and because of the size of the lots, it's pretty much impossible for those conditions to be met because they require large buffer yards, ingress, certain distances from the single family districts and other things. So this is more of a protective rezoning. The 2 parcels or 4 parcels, here's the 812 Cherokee Road. 806 Cherokee Road is currently operating as a duplex. 802 Cherokee Road, which I believe has multiple units. And then of course 810 Congaree, which has, I think, 11 townhouse units on it. So that is the purpose. That's what the request is for, and that is the purpose of it. So that concludes staff's report.
Thank you, Ms. Lane. Questions from the commissioners for staff? Hearing none. Mr. Dudley, would you?
Yeah, I did have a question.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Elaine, you said that setbacks, it wouldn't fit. Which designation were you referring to that it wouldn't fit?
Definitely apartments would not fit. pretty much any of them, because they would require a 40-foot buffer yard between, even if you combined all 4 of these lots, they would require a 40-foot buffer yard between them and the single family behind it. And so that really does pinch the available area for new construction.
So R4 wouldn't fit, R5 it will?
You mean the NC 6.3?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
The uses of the multifamily multiplex, even a townhouse, require certain buffer yards between that use and single family uses. And so there's no way you could fit on one of those lots. And even if someone were to combine all 4 of those, the requirement of the buffer yard and other conditions would be very difficult, if not impossible, to meet.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think development of the sites as multifamily would be impossible, but the buffer yard requirement between any single family use and a multifamily development in this instance would end up being a type D buffer yard, which is 40 feet and a fairly significant vegetative planting and a fence. So
That's
it
on
would
all
either,
3 sides, or?
it would be on any side that it's adjacent to a single family residence or a different housing type in this case. So definitely
It'll be on
along,
2 sides.
that's right. It would be to the rear and it's kind of,
Inside.
L shaped, in there. So that would apply. Also the density, the parking requirements for multifamily would limit them. I think the only way a viable, multifamily development would be able to be developed there is if somebody accumulated those 4 lots into a singular development and utilized the entirety of the property,
Mr. Chairman,
to utilize it that way. So, but that's very speculative stuff.
All right, Mr. Hill?
I'll just offer some commentary. I know one of the property owners and I called him this afternoon to ask how this came about because I was confused by this case. And the property owner said the city staff initiated it and has been very cordial with them and explained that this is simply an oversight and they're trying to remedy the situation, and it dates back to the 1980s. And the property owner said they have no development plans whatsoever, but they were reached out to by staff to offer to correct this.
Thank you for offering that. I'll tell you that I spoke with Mr. Dudley today also, and this is a similar case to Jack Seafood. This one kind of got caught up in the overall changing of our zoning. And this one, like Jack's, is clearly commercial, was zoned residential. The fact that I think 3 of these properties are multi-tenant. You got an apartment complex, you've got 2 single standalone houses with multiple apartments in them. Is there a single unit that doesn't have multi-tenant in it?
I think the 812 is a single family house, but I believe it had been used with multiple tenants in it before, kind of like a boarding house.
Okay, so your confidence is it'd be very difficult to do a multifamily on this side.
That's true. More realistic for redevelopment would be they could potentially put a duplex on the property which one of the properties has now, or potentially a multiplex, which a multiplex is a 4-unit building, but it has to look like a house essentially, so that it has a singular entrance and then it's broken up on the inside. So I think that would be more realistic development for this lot as opposed to a multifamily apartment.
With the 11, you said there's a 11,
Townhouses.
right? So that would conform.
That's right. As it exists right now, even under the current zoning, they are allowed to continue that use. It would be an existing nonconformity. So they can continue to use that property until it falls into a state of disrepair or a state of non-use. And that, I guess, grandfathering, as a lot of folks like to refer to it, expires or runs out. However, if the multifamily zoning was historically what was applied there from, we couldn't find evidence in our zoning records or in our ordinance records as to when that zoning was applied. So it predates, 1980 as far as I can tell, because that's as far back as our ordinance records went. And that's been the historic use of that property. It's what it was zoned in the previous code. And, for whatever reason, when we went through these maps, just like in the first case, it was picked up as the single family, which the rest of that, street is single family in that area. So it's this one little pocket of R5 along Cherokee. I think there's a couple of other little pockets along Cherokee too, of a few
Yeah.
apartment complexes here and there. So.
All right, any other questions from staff? I'll open the public hearing portion of this. Anyone that would like to speak against this request, I invite you to come forward. Seeing no one, anyone that would like to speak in favor of this request? All right, I'll close the public hearing portion of this, call for a motion.
So moved.
Have a motion? Need a second. Have a motion and a second to approve as submitted. Discussion. All right, I will call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Like signs nay. Ayes have it. All right. This is where I usually call on one of our commissioners, Mr. Moses. He is very good at adjournment. He loves that motion better than anything else on our agenda. But he's not here. So, Mr. Dudley, any old business, new business that we need to discuss?
I just will remind everyone that we are still going through the comprehensive planning process, and to give everyone an update on that, we have had a couple of advisory council meetings where we're running draft versions and ideas by a committee, as well as we have presented some of this information to city council. And I expect some draft versions to be available very soon, which I will forward out
We
to
just
all.
can't wait for that.
That's right, I know, that's some lovely reading material. Some draft versions out to planning commission as they come available, and definitely for the entirety of the document to be reviewed by planning commission at a point likely this fall, with adoption in hopefully early winter by the end of the year
Wow.
is our goal. So
Okay. We'll certainly look forward to that. Put that on our calendar.
some light reading.
Any other business? Hearing none, I call for motion to adjourn. Second. We're done.